This space is as ancient as it gets in the New World. And so when Christopher Columbus sailed across the Atlantic in 1492, his first stop was the Dominican Republic. But he set up shop here in Old San Juan, or Viejo San Juan, Puerto Rico. This was the first city. This was where the New World was built. This is where all of Europe's influence on the New World began. When we think about how Europe influenced the indigenous people of all of the Americas, you know, this is kind of the root of it. This is ground zero. And so we're on the first road built by the conquistadors, known as Calle de Cristo, or the Road of Christ. And so this was the old monastery that in 1898, 1899 became the Grand Masonic Lodge of Puerto Rico. And so we're sitting in an old monastery and sitting in an old Masonic temple on the first road, Calle de Cristo. Amazing. And so this property found me, and it kind of forced itself on me as a community hub where we can have these types of gatherings and talk about the past, the present, and ultimately the future that we wish to co-create.
I love it.
Hopefully a much better world because of the new tools that enable us to build such things.
Yeah. Now the topic for this session, that's part of our Global Blockchain Summit we're doing right now, is how is decentralization going to impact art and entertainment in the next decade? So as you start projecting out, like, paint a picture for us. Like, what should people be building toward? What's the big deal about all things blockchain, NFTs, which you've been a part of for 2 decades? Like, why does this matter for the next decade? How is it going to impact arts and entertainment?
Well, my background is in arts and entertainment.
Yep.
So I grew up as an actor, and so that was the first, call it 16 years of my life. Then I started dabbling in media from a production sense and creating content to be distributed over the web. And then I found my way into the gaming industry. And so, media and entertainment is, a big part of, who I am. And so how is this technology going to impact those industries? Well, on the gaming side, clearly NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, the idea that you can accumulate things like gold in World of Warcraft or Linden dollars and things like Second Life. There were big, vibrant markets around the world for secondary trading of these things, which is what my background was. I got into that business in 1999 and started doing that all over the world. So that was a massive industry, and the question is, when would it start impacting gaming? Bitcoin wasn't at a point where it was going to start impacting gaming other than a payment system. And so I went around the old gaming conferences in 2013 and 14, convincing the gaming industry to accept crypto payments. But the bigger and more interesting aspect of how the gaming industry was going to impact this is ultimately in user adoption. And so I went and started spending a lot of time in 2013 and 2014 interfacing with the gaming industry in the largest markets in the world where secondary trading occurred, where people were buying and selling game currencies.
Yes.
And the 2 main markets in the world were China and South Korea.
Right. And
so I went to my old business partners, I went to the old gaming companies, went to the old exchanges, and I said, you need to get into this Bitcoin thing. And they're like, what? Like, Bitcoin's going to be a big deal. They're like, nah, we've seen other people try and make things. Brock, you're wrong. I'm like, guys, Bitcoin is going to be a big deal. And they're like, really? I'm like, yes. And I'm twisting arms. I'm like, you need to get into Bitcoin. You need to start playing around in this space, and we need to start marketing Bitcoin to all of the users of World of Warcraft and all the users of Lineage in these markets, because there's no learning curve. People that have already learned that intangible assets inside of games have value.
Right.
The idea that something like a digital currency like Bitcoin should have value is a small leap. It's a big leap for the average person. I mean, people used to come up to me in the mid-2000s and say, what do you mean people spend money on World of Warcraft gold? Why would they want to spend money on gold in a game? And I would give them the example of golf. It's like, are you a golfer? And they might say yes. I go, well, when you play golf, do you like to have good clubs? And they're like, yeah. Right. And I go, well, do you like to play on good courses? And they're like, yeah. Right. I go, that's how you choose to spend your discretionary time. Imagine if playing World of Warcraft is how you chose to spend your discretionary time. Don't you think those people want to have good swords? Right. Don't you think they want to play on good maps? Don't you think they want those same things? I go, just because it's intangible doesn't make it any less valuable. It's how you spend your discretionary time. And they're like, oh, that makes sense. But that was a long learning curve for the average person. to make the conclusion that just because something is intangible doesn't make it less valuable. And so I figured that the gaming community around the world would understand the importance or the potential of something like Bitcoin, and it should come as no surprise that the largest markets in the world for cryptocurrencies are South Korea and China.
Amazing.
It's because of the gamers. It's because the gamers understood that non-fungible things can have value. My old partners launched, BitThumb, and my partners created a lot of the main businesses in China and Korea reluctantly. Now they're like, Brock, thank you. That was the greatest thing that's ever happened to me. Thank you. I'll never doubt you again. Just tell me whatever's happening next, and I'm in. But that was what I spent a lot of 2013 and 14 doing.